Hello and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, hi, I'm Cassidy. If it's not, thanks for always tuning into my videos. This is a really fun video. This one's really exciting because I decided to learn how to use Google Sheets and make all of you a spreadsheet. To be honest, I was making myself a spreadsheet and then it just exploded into why not share it with other people. For the last 2 years, I have been using Copile, which is a brilliant spreadsheet created by G, and to be honest, G Spreadsheet is what led me to making this, and I think you can see a lot of inspiration from G Spreadsheet, and the Copile rating system really works for a lot of people, so I will link G's video down below for her newest update when that comes out for Copile. I don't know when that's coming out. There's normally an update every single year. Because if you do if you don't want a weighted rating system, G's is perfect. So for me, what happened is while I was using Copile over the last year, I learned I was just kind of maneuvering numbers to fit my gut reactions and my enjoyment level. The number system just wasn't really working. It wasn't correlating to my gut instincts. So I thought, why not make myself my own? In this, the really big difference is that the 5 things that I critique are primarily fantasy based, but they do work for other genres. I do read romance and I do read horror thrillers and sci-fi, and I think they work for all of those. They just take a little bit of tweaking, and that I weight my enjoyment a little bit higher than the other 4 categories, as I think my enjoyment of a book really matters to me. Whether I disliked it or didn't like my experience matters more than whether the characters were well written for me personally. So that's why I created a weighted rating system. Let's get into the spreadsheet, and I'll go over everything with you that is on the spreadsheet. I learned a lot. Thank you so much. Also, big thank you to Rachel and my boyfriend, who often spent hours with me trying to figure out some problems, because I was teaching myself Google Sheets. I've never used it before, really, besides minor things. Let's dive into it. We're gonna start off with the basis. I have 2 spreadsheets that will be linked down below. Just a reminder that if you do choose to use this spreadsheet, you do have to make a copy of it or else you won't be able to edit it. You will have to go to File, Make a Copy, and then you can rename your own copy and it'll work for you. You can't actually edit this spreadsheet itself. But I have 2 linked down below. One is the original weighted rating system, and then one is the exact same system. It just has half stars in it. I personally don't use half stars, but I know a lot of people do, so I did add that as a whole extra spreadsheet so that you would still get some good stats. Now we start with the book title. Nice and simple. I just put book 1, book 2, book 3, and book 4 in currently because I just needed to show you everything was working. Then you have the author. Again, I just put some random authors in. Then you have the month. This is a pull down menu. You can pick any of the 12 months. Nice and simple. Then you have genre, and I put in some of the genres I use. As I said, I made the spreadsheet as something that for myself. It wasn't really supposed to be for everyone else until I decided that. So I think I am probably missing a lot of those genres. If you have an extra genre you want to read, you can always add it. You just have to hit this little edit button in the corner and you will be able to add a whole other item to the drop down menu. Super simple. Then column number E is for us genre blanket people. If you have been following me for the past year, you know I make a genre blanket and I need to keep track of it somehow so that I don't get lost. So I just have a little checkbox for when I've sewed it into the genre blanket. When I've crocheted the row, I just hit that checkbox and then I always know. I put this right next to the genre so that it's easy to see what color you need. Pages. These are your pages read. Really easy. You just input some numbers, call it a day. Average length, I think, is a new one. I personally like to see this as a stat at the end of the year, so I make it small, medium, large, and chunky. You can decide what those mean for you. For me, a small book is under 300 pages. A medium book is 300 to 500. A large one is about 500 to 800, and then a chunky is over 800. You can decide whatever you want. I just put the 4 there for anyone wanting it. Next, we have publication year. I know in Copile and I think in other spreadsheets it is often just a date. After talking with some people, we thought that a date wasn't really needed. How often do you actually care about how many books were out that you read were in 1989? I mean, I'm sure there are people who care about that, but for me personally, I didn't. I know a lot of people just track either new release or backlist. I added a third option, which was last year. I often read a lot of books from the previous year the next year. Like, I'm playing catch up on new releases most of the time. I think it's because new releases are scary, so once they've been vetted a little bit, I read them in the next coming year. So I did put backlist, last year, and new release. Backlist obviously meaning anything prior to the last year. Publisher. Publisher is super fun for me because I decided to do a stat that you'll see later that will track your parent publishers. So publishers is a write-in. We'll go over later how you have to kind of be a little specific with your write-in if you want to track that parent publisher. If you don't care about that parent publisher, you don't have to, but when I go over the stat part, I will showcase you what I mean, but I'm just kind of going over what the spreadsheet has on it currently. Next we have format read, simple, audiobook, ebook, physical, and mixed media. For me, mixed media is if I read it between more than one format. So if I read an audiobook but also picked up the book, I read most of my books mixed media, but I like having that option there. Then we have acquired, we have ARC, Audible, KU, Library, NetGalley, Owned, and Scribd. Again, these are only the things I use. If there are other places that you get your books, feel free to add something in. And then we have the rating system, which, I didn't even show you the rubric. Wow. I should have showed you that earlier, but we'll showcase it to you now. We have the rating system. So for this, we have character, plot, writing, setting, and enjoyment. Characters are pretty self-explanatory. How well do you think the characters were developed? Same with plot. Same with writing. Setting, I tend to think of setting / world building. In fantasy books, I think it ends up being a lot of world building, but in a horror book or a romance book, it's all about the setting and the vibes and like the themes, the overall vibes and mood you get when reading. And then we have enjoyment. As I said, this is a weighted rating system. What does this mean? Is that characters are worth 1, plot is worth 1, writing is worth 1, setting is worth 1, but enjoyment is worth 2. So enjoyment is worth double the amounts as the rest. Technically, when you click on the little thing that says score, it gives you the weights. You could change this. There's no reason to say like, oh, you think characters matter more to you than enjoyment. You can change it so that enjoyment is weighted at 1 and characters will be weighted at 2. You can see how this works. You won't see the biggest difference in your weighted scores for the most part if they're all even. Like if you're giving 7s across the boards, it's not really going to change whether your enjoyment was a 7 or your enjoyment was an 8. It's not going to change it being weighted. When you will see it matter is when you, let's say the characters, the plot, the writing, the setting, they're all 8s, but you had no fun with the book and you give the book a 2, you will really see the jump from stars change. Let me see if I can show you. So we have characters, plot, writing, and setting all at 1, and then we have enjoyment sitting at 10, so you get a 4.0. But if I change that even to a 5, we end up with a 2.33. If we change that to a 1, we end up with a 4. But let's say I left enjoyment at 1 and we only changed setting to a 4. It's only a 1.50, so even though the same numbers were done as earlier, if enjoyment is a 4 and setting is a 1, you get a 4.0 score. But if setting is a 4 and enjoyment is a 1, you get a 1.50. But you won't see it really change that much if all your numbers are pretty even. Like let's say enjoyment's at an 8. You will get the star rating. In between here, there are just hidden things. These are just for statistics and stuff and help generate some scores. You don't need to see them. You can keep them hidden. But if you were wanting to change anything specifically, you could go in there and change like the exact rating system. Then we have series or standalone. For this, I put series standalone, but I also put companion, as I know that is a big thing coming out these days, is like companion books that aren't necessarily like a series, but they do happen like within the same world or something. You could put that under companion. I just thought that was a fun little take. And then we have some check boxes. We have new series, continue a series, finish a series, and then caught up on a series. Pretty self-explanatory for all my fantasy series readers out there. Then we have written by, I put woman, man, non-binary, unspecified, and multiple, if there's multiple authors. And then for me, I just did a checkbox for representation as a whole. For me, I don't need to track all of the different representations because there's so many out there that it just was hard to encompass. And for my yearly statistics, I just want to make sure I'm reading a lot of books that have representation, regardless of what kind of representation they are. I just want to make sure I'm continually reading representation books. So I just put a checkbox for this, and you just check it off when a book has representation. And then we have new author. If you've never read from an author before, you just checkbox that. Nice and simple. And then at the end of the spreadsheet, I do have a column for DNFs. I don't track DNFs, but I know a lot of people do. So it is right there. If there are any things on this spreadsheet that do not work for you, you can just hide that column. If you deleted it, probably shouldn't ruin anything, but I'm not the best Google Sheet person, so I think that you should just hide things. If you do need to hide things, you just right-click on a column, and if you're on a MacBook and you don't know how to right-click, it's Control while you click, and you hit Hide Column. That is what's all on the spreadsheet. The first page of the spreadsheet is actually a rubric with my rating system to how I rate things and what I go over. You don't really need this. It's just for me, really. But if you are interested in my rating system and you want to use it to have similar ratings to me, it's on here. Statistics. So the first page we have is yearly stats. These are your stats for the year. Really self-explanatory. We have books read. Total books read this year. Total books without DNFs. You have your pages read. Each month will tell you the page count that you read and total pages read this year and average pages per book this year. Nice, simple. There we go. We have our genre breakdown. This will tell you each genre you read each month. And then we also have how many genres you read, and the genre with the most 5 stars will also be here. Book size. You'll see a graph with your small, medium, chunky, and large. You have your publication date graph, your format read date, your format read graph, and your format acquired graph. These are all self-explanatory to me. You have your parent publisher graph, and then your publisher graph. So your publisher graph will consist of anything you write, exactly. It'll go down there, but your parent publisher graph is linked to the More Stats page, where I have a gigantic list of publishers and their parent publisher. I think I put like 500 different things in here, different little publishers and publisher groups in here. I probably missed some. There's a big difference between the States and the UK. There's multiple publishers everywhere, so I'm so sorry if I did miss any. I can walk you through how to add them. It is really, really simple. And the other thing is, when you write your publisher, you do have to write exactly what I put if you want it to count. Because essentially what's happening is, let's find something that has a number. Essentially what's happening is when you write out your publisher, so you wrote out Tor Nightfire earlier, this counts anytime it sees that exact wording, Tor Nightfire, and then it will correspond to Macmillan, which is next to it, and then we will get a parent publisher list up here. It is really easy to do. If you need to add some, we can literally add one right now. Let's say you want to add just like an author's name to self-published. You would just copy self-published and paste it down below. Go to this column, D, write that author's name. You'd have to write the specific author's name, okay? And then you would just drag that thing down and double click, and within the quotation marks, you write author's name. Then, if I ever go right into my publisher, author's name, you'll see it pop up as 1. And then up in the parent column, you'll also see a self-published pop up. You can do this for anything else. You essentially just need to have the parent publisher on the right column and the name there. It's really easy, I promise, but I think that you should not have any issues. There are 326 different little publishers in here, so I hope that that doesn't become an issue. And as I said, it's only if you want to track your parent publishers, which I did the huge ones I could think of. Obviously, there's always some issues, but hopefully I got them all. We have Penguin Random House, Macmillan, Simon & Schuster, Hachette, HarperCollins, Sourcebooks, Bloomsbury, indie publishers, and self-published. I hope I got everything. And then you will just see your parent publisher graph in the yearly stats and your regular publisher graph as well. Then we have star ratings. We have series versus standalone. You'll also see a stat for series started, series continued, series finished, and series up to publication. And then you have your author, which will also say your percentage of representation and your percentage of new authors. Those are all your yearly stats. And then we also, I guess in more stats, the other yearly stat you can find is your 5-star breakdown. I do have a little column going here. Every time you give a book 5 stars, it should go into the designated genre, and then you will be able to see your most read 5-star. And then you also can go over here if you just want to see the numbers and not the graph for your ratings. Other than that, as a booktuber, I thought it would be really interesting to have monthly stats, so I made us a monthly stats page. This took me a lot of time and a lot of help from Rachel. In this, you have every single month: January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, as you go horizontally across. And you will have your total books read in January, your total pages read in January, your average pages per day in January, your average page count per book, your most read genre, your books with representation, your authors read from before list, how many. You'll have a star rating breakdown for every single month, so you can see exactly how many stars of each you've given out. And then you'll have a publication breakdown, so you can see how many new releases you read that month, backlists you read that month, and last year releases. A format breakdown, you can see how many physical books you read, how many ebooks you read, all of that good stuff. Then you'll also have a series breakdown, so you can see how many series you started, how many series you continued, and how many series you completed, how many series you caught up with, and how many standalones you read. You will also have an acquired breakdown. You can see how many ARCs you read, how many books you read from Audible, how many books you got from the library, all of that good stuff within that month. And then at the end, you just have a genre breakdown. This is needed in order to get you your most read genre each month. We just have to count them individually. You don't have to worry about anything. This will manually go, so when you add another genre to January, so let's say we go back into books and we read a book in January and it was sci-fi, it will automatically then pop up and count for you. You don't have to worry about manually entering them. There is a spreadsheet thingy code that does it for you. You just can't, just have to make sure it has room underneath. Don't add anything underneath, which is why we have a long table. It's kind of ugly, but it works for what we wanted it to work for. You should be able to go below the last 0. I don't see anyone having that many genres in a month. I don't even think I put that many genres on the spreadsheet, but just in case. So in these months that say NA, it's just because there is no genre yet for that month. We haven't had anything happen in that month. As soon as I add, let's change this to March. As soon as I add that, you will see it pop up in March and get rid of that NA. It's the same with this right here. The most read genre will say not available. It'll say an error until you've read a genre, and then it should count properly. And you'll also get an issue for your average page count, just because it needs some numbers. 0 can't be divided by 0. So once it gets those numbers, it'll fix that for you. Other than that, it should be fine. You have the exact same thing over here for your weighted rating with half stars. The only difference is that you will get some half stars in here as well. You can see here we have a 1.5 and a 3.5 star. Everything else will be the same. It's just that we have half stars. I hope that all makes sense to you. I really do. As a quick reminder, when you're using Google Spreadsheets, you have to make a copy of the spreadsheet. You have to go to File, make a copy, and make your own copy in order to use it. You won't be able to edit anything on this spreadsheet until you make a copy, and then you'll have that spreadsheet. Don't email me about questions. I'm putting this under an email I do not use, so that any emails will just go to the fluff-averse. And other than that, if you don't want anything, if you don't want to track something, hide it. I recommend hiding it instead of deleting it. And you can always add other things. If you notice any issues with it, let me know in the comments down below. I don't think that there should be any issues. I had Claire graciously beta test it for me the other night, and I think everything is working. I'm excited to use this next year. I'm really excited. I'm really excited about that publisher breakdown. That took me hours to do. You also, if you don't want the more stats showing, you can literally just hide it, but I recommend having it shown just because I would say at least for the first while, you can go and check how I spelt things. I tried to go exactly what was on the book, like what you would see on a book, to be the publisher name. Hopefully it all works. I'm excited. I'm excited, but I'm hoping it all works. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this, which was a really good setup for hopefully being able to make a spreadsheet for Realmathon next year, because last year I had Maddie do it for me, and yeah, I really hope everything works perfectly. Other than that, have yourselves an absolutely remarkable day. Thank you so much for watching my content. If you're using this spreadsheet next year, let me know. If you'd like to connect with me on other platforms, my Bookstagram, my Book Twitter, my Goodreads, and my Patreon all linked in the description bar below.